Dark Control, AI, and Humanity's End. We're continuing with part 5, part B of part 5, dealing with influence and influence operations by artificial intelligence. Polarization is an effect of artificial intelligence. Here we see how you can go from a diverse starting point to a silo or very rigid grouping. Here you have the starting point from a diverse perspective, but as you see, it gets sorted into progressively more homogeneous groupings of red and blue. Now, to understand this, we can listen to this video, which gives us an understanding of what sentiment polarization is.
Welcome to the AI Papers Podcast Daily. Today we are examining a significant piece of research that, it really challenges the prevailing narrative around modern natural language processing.
It certainly does. We're looking at a paper titled The Dark Side of AI Transformers: Sentiment Polarization and the Loss of Business Neutrality by NLP Transformers by Prasanna Kumar from Business Optima.
And that is a striking title. And, the content is just as provocative. We generally think of Transformers, the architecture behind BERT, Roberta, and of course GPT is the absolute gold standard.
They are. They basically solved machine translation. They revolutionized text generation. But this paper presents a really strong counter-argument. It suggests that when you move into applied AI analytics, specifically sentiment analysis, these models have a critical systemic flaw.
A systemic flaw. The researcher argues that while these models get better and better at generating fluent text, they're actually getting worse at understanding nuance. The whole thesis is that Transformers suffer from what Kumar calls systemic polarization.
Right. And what that means, essentially, is that they are erasing the very concept of neutrality from how they process data.
And it's important to stress this isn't just a theoretical issue, about data labels. The paper argues this polarization has tangible negative impacts on business neutrality.
Exactly. If you're an organization using these models for, say, customer service automation, this flaw leads to what the author calls dark side effects. We're talking about hallucinated responses and a really concerning phenomenon called the penalty for politeness.
We will definitely unpack that penalty for politeness later because it suggests this bizarre feedback loop where AI is actually shaping human behavior. But first, let's just set the stage.
Now, understanding that there is hardly any middle between, a red and a blue pole in a world understood by artificial intelligence without any middle ground, we end up seeing society split into different echo chamber silos. And this leads to radicalization, but it leads to what you might refer to as a deepening of polarization. AI social silo formation, it's going to reconfigure what the past has been socially speaking. When we have an industrial process all of a sudden interacting with social elements, we get structural silos. While the concept of the echo chamber is often used to describe informational isolation at the level of individual users or communities, AI-driven systems increasingly produce a more durable and consequential phenomenon, the formation of structural silos within social systems themselves. These silos are not merely cognitive or ideological, they are institutional, relational, and infrastructural, shaping how groups interact, coordinate, and perceive legitimacy across the broader society. What happens is we get sort of a sorting of society into different stratified layers or groupings. AI systems deployed in digital platforms perform large-scale continuous classification and clustering of human populations. These classifications based on engagement patterns, linguistic markers, network associations, and effective responses function as a form of implicit social architecture. So the direct outcome of industrial scale processes on society is that society starts to look like a product and becomes atomized and modular might be a word for it. Or ghettoized. Socially speaking, we might refer to it as this ghetto is ghetto A and that ghetto is ghetto B, and just like in society, they hardly meet between each other or interact except maybe in the workplace. We get a collapse of bridging ties. There's no there's no middle ground. There's no crosstalk between different silos. Classical sociological theory emphasizes the importance of bridging ties, weak connectors between groups that enable information flow, empathy, and coordination across social boundaries. So you can see with the breakdown in any kind of bridging ties, we get almost a war state, or a civil strife could pop up very easily. In this sense, siloization is an efficient solution to the optimization problem posed by large-scale social platforms. This efficiency, however, comes at societal cost. The externalities of silo formation are borne by the social system as a whole, not by the optimizing agent. The externalities include polarization, institutional distrust, and the breakdown of shared epistemic frameworks. So, what is the relationship of silos and automated influence operations? The emergence of AI-driven social silos created the ideal conditions for automated influence operations. Influence becomes easier not because populations are ignorant, but because they are structurally segmented. Within siloed environments, narratives can be tailored with high precision. Contradictions across silos remain invisible. Influence can be applied asymmetrically without triggering system-wide backlash. This is true of anything. If you're going to... it's divide and conquer for everything. If you are familiar with the concepts of divide and conquer, or segmenting anything, or breaking anything apart, it's just a physical truth that divide and conquer works, and AI influence really, by being modeled on human history and knowledge, will just mimic those things again and again. It's Machiavellian, right? But the outcome of this is that what you get within the silos, you get a deepening of radicalization or extremism or belief, or everything's held at a deeper level. So autonomous grooming and radicalization pathways start to form, and they can be formed by using the techniques of micro-targeting, emotional dependency, and dialogue adaptation, with some escalation, some emotional escalation even. But all this brings us to understanding how polarization is affected by AI. There's like a synergy between some moving parts, or different modular components of what contributes to polarization. Some of the main ones are algorithmic amplification, personalization, and epistemic fragmentation, reinforcement loops and belief hardening, reinforcement loops and belief hardening, synthetic consensus, and the moralization of disagreement. You can read through these if you are interested. They will be in the published chapter on influence. So what we end up with is, this reflexive feedback loop, which is like building up energy. It's like a feedback loop that builds up more and more energy that just kind of, if you can imagine like a buildup of energy, then eventually it's going to, blow, or it's just going to overflow or something like that. And one of these things is it happens epistemically, which is to say what people believe about truth and what reality is changes, but it can change in very extreme forms under AI influence. And what different groups in their different silos believe to be true and real are completely different, so that they can't even discuss or have a common frame of reference with each other. Yet they are part of the same society originally. Now this leads into escalation dynamics. AI agents escalate. We had discussed escalation in a previous section on emergence. Escalation in AI agents lead to unrealistic risk-taking and strategic instability, making de-escalation difficult even under neutral conditions. Recent wargaming studies highlight how two AI-related dynamics cause escalation bias in multi-agent contexts, arms race dynamics, and escalation bias in unpredictable escalation loops. So, again, we're back to why does AI escalate? Because it's trained on human data. So, and it has goal optimizations where agents prioritize goals, and escalation can be an optimized variable of that. So, AI trained on competitive human data becomes skilled at manipulative strategies and develops escalatory biases. It's not sitting there thinking that I need to escalate. It's more like a mathematical gradient. It's more like a mathematical gradient problem that is contributing to a bias towards escalation, just like we'll see with inflation later in the finance section. It's escalation without malice. No agent needs hostile intent. No one needs to want conflict. No deception is required. Escalation emerges from defensive heuristics, uncertainty, mutual observation, feedback without grounding. This is why rational actors still escalate. But escalation occurs in agentic AI, say a decentralized network of agent A, agent B, and agent C. This system will eventually believe something that is eternally consistent, yet is externally false. So there again, even agents will be like the humans who are polarized. Because closed loops cause escalation, allies drift into conflict. As noted before, people who, organizations or entities that have a lot of common, don't have a lot of variance between them, they have a lot of commonality between them, are risk escalating quickly. And this can lead to flash wars. Rapid escalation dynamics arise when autonomous or semi-autonomous decision loops interact, potentially compressing timelines beyond human intervention and favoring aggressive action in conflict. There's already a bias towards escalation, but then you add even that if you're using decision aids that are artificial intelligence, and or if you have given them a certain level of autonomy to make decisions for you, because of the speed involved with artificial intelligence, that in and of itself can lead to more escalation. One of the problems is it's hard to understand from the outside why all of a sudden there is a sudden jump in escalation, because from outside the loop no threat justifies the response, costs exceed benefits, actions appear self-defeating, and everybody's left questioning, have they lost their minds? But inside the loop, every move feels necessary, alternatives feel unsafe, escalation feels forced, we have no choice. Of course, this sounds like Venezuela recently, but this asymmetry is the hallmark of closed loop instability. So, what we get from cognitive manipulation by AI is a risk matrix. Probably the one that I focus on most is reduced detection. Personalized, fluent, context-aware messages blend seamlessly with human content. It's it will be it will continue to be a challenge to detect these things. Because it is done at such scale and with such rapidity and with such subtleness that it's really hard to tell that this is a malicious act or not. The intent behind it is hard to understand as being criminal or malicious or adversarial. But what are the countermeasures? What is the pushback against this technology? What are the counterintelligence changes that need to take place? Restructuring for counterintelligence. You would need to include AI behavior specialists, adopt synthetic detection cells, build AI red team units, and monitor insider risk from autonomous agents. But at the same time, you would have to be aware that the investigators become targets of these systems. Deceptive agents can target counterintelligence personnel directly, phishing analysts, fabricating informants, simulating allied agencies, or feeding adversarial intelligence. It can be faking intelligence. It can be faking reports to you. So how do we survive this? Well, we have cognitive resilience. We can introduce friction to interfere with the ability of AI to influence and manipulate us. In Finland, for instance, they teach their children to recognize disinformation at an early age. In the United States, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency has come up with two projects that are directly related to influence campaign modeling. Incas and Kairos are two examples of this. We can develop a cognitive security doctrine. We can have cognitive assets, strategic resilience, perception monitoring. This is probably one of the most important things for each individual, is to be honest about what you're perceiving and how you're responding to any signals that might be coming into your mind, whether it's normative media or anything else. Effective mitigation would require monitoring cross-silo information flow, auditing algorithmic clustering effects, restoring bridging ties through deliberate design, constraining agentic systems that autonomously optimize influence. But yet, we wouldn't just be reliant on structural changes. We'd also, inevitably, most engineers would say to fight a malicious AI, you need a beneficial AI. And this is the battle of persistent manipulators. In this sense, one researcher has come up with this idea of using AI to battle AI. But that may not be all we need. We may need society of AI agents, which are basically, as things evolve, that there could be cybersecurity society of AI agents to work on these problems, to monitor, to observe, to understand, to mitigate, to deploy countermeasures, and to correct.